It'll be okay. All right. We are in Exodus chapter 19 today. That's where we're starting. We could possibly finish Exodus today, or we could just be ready to start Exodus next time. I got the clicker, Lene. It's okay. I'm working. There are mics around. I think there's a mic over there, and there's a mic somewhere right here, so that if the people online would like to hear you guys speak. So don't be afraid of the mics. Don't be afraid of them. They don't bite. Yes, there are some mice, I'm sure. No, we have traps out for those. So we're in the book of Exodus, and we've come a long ways from the beginning, haven't we, of Exodus? Yes. We've seen Moses born. We've seen him grow up, and we've had a discussion of Mount Sinai and all the different places where we could put that, and and the reality is, just because we don't know where it's at, doesn't mean it's not real. We've discussed the Amalekites. They've won their first victory. They're going to Mount Sinai, and chapter 19 is the section where you get to Mount Sinai, and it's really from here until Numbers 10:10. They're going to be, so that's all the book of Leviticus. They're going to be at one place. They're going to be at this Mount Sinai. They're there for about 2 years. And so they're going to be camped out there. And this is a camping society. They're in tents. So there's no structures for us to find archaeologically wise, like building wise. If there are 2 to 3 million, like our current translation of the Bible said, we expect to find maybe some pottery and stuff like that. But if it's used a lot, we may not ever find it because it'd been trampled and walked. I mean, so much of our history has been lost to the sands of time because what we make is not, forever. And every year it seems we're making more new discoveries that change the way we understand things. I was just reading an article out of a medical journal about an Egyptian pharaoh who they now have been able to, because of modern forensics, been able to decide how he died with what weapons it was that killed him as well. And it's helping us understand history, and really kind of cool. But they're at Mount Sinai. Moses has got the people out of Egypt. They've been paid to leave after the death of the firstborn. They were throwing gold at them. And they're in the they went through the desert, which is going to be food and water is going to be a major complaint. They're going to always be complaining about it now, and then when they're in wilderness later on, always complaining about it. But we really got to Exodus chapter 19. In the third month after the Israelites went out from the land of Egypt on this day, so the third month, so it took them 3 months to get here. They came to the Sinai desert. The Sinai desert, and they came to the Sinai desert, and they camped in the desert, and Israel camped in front of the mountain. This mountain that Moses, this is the same camp, the place that Moses spoke to earlier with the burning bush. I hope you read all of chapter 19. I'm not going to sit and read it all right now because I do want to move on. But this is a really important passage. I'm going to give you the crux of it right here, though. Crux of it is found in verse 5 and 6, like the key points. The rest of it is important, but the key points in chapter 19 is the Mosaic covenant. And it lays out that the Jewish people are going to be a treasured possession. I think God calls them my treasured possession. So they're going to be a kingdom of priests, a holy nation, which is important. And you will listen carefully to my voice and keep my covenants. You will be a treasured possession for me out of all the peoples, for all the earth is mine, but you will belong to me as a kingdom of priests, a holy nation. There are words that you will speak to the Israelites, and Moses will speak to these words. But it's to say that he's not saying the rest of the nations aren't important. He's not saying he doesn't love the rest of the nations. He's not saying that the other nations are all bad guys. A lot of times when we read the Bible, we want to make everyone else to be the bad guy. But the bad guys often actually act better than the good guy, the Israelites. It's not that. It says, God, this is my chosen people. This is, to me, the way it helps me look at it is this is my 10th percent. This is my you are mine. Like we give our tithe. That's my out of my money, 10th out of our time, out of all the people on earth. This is my 10th. This is my sacrifice. This is my people. And even out of that group, we're going to see that the Levites got pulled out. Even out of that, they were the priest that represents the firstborn in sacrifice. So this is my treasured possession. Now, interesting enough, as in this, my treasured possession, the kingdom of priests, 1 Peter 2:9, Peter uses this exact wording to refer to Christians, all Christians, Gentile, Jew alike. You are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation for a people of God's possession, so that you may proclaim the virtues of the ones who are called out of darkness into the marvelous light. He's using the wording from this Mosaic covenant when he writes this. So we are the Mosaic covenant promise, Peter says, it belongs to those who are called out, all of the Christians, Gentile and alike, which is going back to that theme that we've seen already in the scriptures of God calling out one to bless the many. And as he follows one, getting smaller until it gets to Jesus Christ, and then it starts going back out to the many. That theme that we've started, that's in the scriptures, as he is calling all nations to himself. And that's Peter. So they're at Mount Sinai for about 2 years. I guess let's read Exodus 19, 20 through 25. Yeah, I'll read that. And Yahweh went down on Mount Sinai to the top of the mountain, and Yahweh called Moses. I like how this is like God came down to the mountain. This is the same kind of language that you're going to read if you go read other ancient Near East religions. The gods descend to where we are. And it's the same kind of language. To the top of the mountain, and Yahweh called to Moses to the top of the mountain. So God came down and Moses went up to meet him. I like how it's not just God came down. It's not all God. We have to do something too. But it's not all man either. Sometimes we like to put it's all my job. But no, God meets us. And I like that. I think there's something to that there. And Moses went up, and Yahweh said to Moses, go down and warn the people. I love it. He just gets there. He says, go down and warn the people, lest they break through to Yahweh to see many from them fall. And the priests who come near to Yahweh must consecrate themselves, lest Yahweh break out against them. And Moses said to Yahweh, the people are not able to go up to Mount Sinai because you warned us, saying, set limits around the mountain and consecrate it. And Yahweh said, go down and come up, you and Aaron, with you and the priest. But the people must not break through to go up to Yahweh, lest he break out against them. And Moses went down to the people and told them. So he's come down, but God descending. Anytime God enters into a place, it makes it holy. And that's great and wonderful and amazing, but also this great responsibility and fearful and it's kind of, scary, thank you. If God is there, you have to be in the right place. And I think there's something to say that if God says, I am you are my temple now, there's something that we have to keep this in mind. And the tabernacle will follow the same kind of patterns. You can't, if God is going to be there, you have to be there as well. David. Yeah, why don't you grab a mic? Absolutely. The Abrahamic covenant is you're going to be a blessing no matter what happens. This one is conditional. We go back and read right there at the beginning. It said, in verse 5, I think is, keep my covenant and you will be. Keep my covenant. If you don't keep my covenant, guess what? You ain't going to be it no more. And that's really, Isaiah, Amos, a lot of the Zephaniah, Jesus even had some of this, had a lot to say about this. You know, hey, if you're not keeping up with your part of the bargain, I may love you still. Abraham's descendant, you may still be numerous as the stars with the land and the blessing, but you're no longer going to be my chosen people. Yes, ma'am.
Look at yourself and don't come to me just anyway. Don't come to me dirty. Get ready because you're going to draw near to God.
Well, clean up. He did say consecrate, wash your clothes. Be ready to enter into the cave. Be clean. And it's not about pride. It's not about us. It's about being ready to enter into God's grace. And as we wash our clothes, the idea is we're supposed to be washing ourselves as well. All right. Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20. At Mount Sinai. All right. Probably the most famous of all the Old Testament. It's everywhere. We argue about whether it should be on the courthouses, or we argue about whether it should be in schools, and we argue about whether maybe it should be on our hearts before we put it everywhere else. But this 10 Commandments, he just said, you will be a treasured possession. You will be, if you keep my covenant. So he's just said that. So we have to keep that in mind as we come to this place. This is what it means to be a treasured possession of God. This is what it means to be the people of God, is this right here. So we have to keep that in mind. You can't just pull this out of context. This is what it means. This is what we would call an apodictic law. There are two types of laws in the Hebrew, and in English as well. Apodictic, which is absolute, Bill of Rights. This is all the rest of the laws are built on these laws, these absolutes. And then there's casuistic or case law, which this case comes up. How do we apply the apodictic law to this circumstance, and it creates a new law. And we do that all the time, right? You know, this is what the Constitution says. How do we apply that to this new situation that comes up with Google or with Facebook, or you know, how does that apply? And we take a case off of that, and so we have to look at the absolutes. It all has to be based off the absolutes. Nothing can break the absolutes. And the 10 Commandments are the absolutes in the Scripture, in the Old Testament. These are, and all the rest of the case law that we're going to see, the 613, other laws, the 613 laws. These are the absolutes that the rest of the laws are all based off of. These ones right here. So, real quick, who can memorize them? Just kidding. I had to do that in history in school. Well, there's 10 of them there. All right, put your glasses on. You shall have no other gods before me. Number 1. Now, if you're reading the book of Deuteronomy, then there's a different order to these. But we're going to focus on Exodus now. You shall have no other gods before me. Now, in that society, they worshiped lots of gods. Remember, I told you these people were probably henotheistic. They recognized all the other gods were there. They just came out of Egypt, where Mot and Ra and Hathor, and they recognize these other gods, but they don't worship any of these gods. It's not like they just say, well, they don't exist. They don't worship any of them. And we do the same things in our society. We don't call things gods anymore, but we have the same principles that we still can worship, right? Like they just name things. In the Greek, you might have the god of victory, which is Nike, and we just have, we just love to win. That's I worship winning. But or greed. Greeks had mammon. And family and they had a goddess of family, and we can worship all these things. We've stopped naming them and personifying these things, but we're still worship them. So anything that has, so this is kind of, you shall have no other God. So anything that can take priority of God, don't do it. Don't let anything look me in the eye, is actually what the Hebrew says. Don't let anything look me in the eye. Nothing is equal to me. I'm above it all. You shall make for yourself a graven image. Now, most of us Christians say we're really good at this, but we're not. Graven image. We don't build, a lot of us in this society we live in, we don't build images to gods anymore. In other countries, it's still a common practice to have your images. But we still see images of gods here in the United States. Statues of saints can become deified. They may not say it, but they can be. Not all Catholics are that way, but there are a great number of them that do deify them. But we can also do things like take graven images like the cross, which is a wonderful symbol, but we can turn that into a graven image. Or Jesus. We can turn, that's the Last Supper picture of the Last Supper, which I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not a big fan of white Jesus. Just not. That's personal opinion. But we can turn that, and we can get our theology from that, like the Da Vinci Code. We can get our theology from that, and not from what the Bible says. Anytime we think we've got an idea of what God is in our heads, you've put a box around Him. The only way we can know God is through Jesus Christ and through our Scriptures. And so we can get the idea. Now, there are some things we will never truly understand because we're too small. We can't truly understand some of these things, but we can get an idea, an image of him. Who was it? Packard. Knowing God. He has a wonderful things to say about this in his book, Knowing God. That's a wonderful book. If you haven't read it, Packard.
A graven image could be even a car, a house.
Yes, a graven image could be a car or a house. See, but the thing is, we can make those, but those are not images of God, of Yahweh. Those may be images of another God. And we may worship those. But this is actually even speaking about, do not make any graven images of me. You know, one of the things that why he doesn't want us to create graven images of himself? Have you ever thought about this? Why? I mean, all the other gods want images of themselves. Why not him? There you go. We are his image. He's already done it. He doesn't need us to build images of him. He's already built images of himself. Us. We're his image. He said, I will build them in my image. So he's already built the image. So don't make any even. That's a false image of himself. We're his image. So wonderful theology there is you don't need it. We're it. Yes, yeah. Jesus is the image of the invisible God. Do you think you're right? I think it is Colossians. And that's how we know what God is. We read Jesus. You want to get an image of God? Read Jesus. Now, we have to be careful of saying that because we've made Jesus into lots of things that he isn't. Because we take him out of context. We put him into our culture, not us into his culture. We forget that he's part of the Old Testament as well, so we don't understand the Old Testament. I don't know how many people I've talked, well, I love Jesus, but I've never read the Old Testament. Then you don't really get Jesus, because Jesus is all about the Old Testament. Colossians 1:15, thank you. It's Colossians 1:15. Yes, we can. We can make ourselves into our own gods and make ourselves into an image of a false god, which is usually ourselves, because we tend to be selfish people. That's very true. We can throw that image of God that he's made into something that is totally not. And we see this actually in a lot of people, even in ourselves sometimes, right? When we're not imaging God because we're sinful. I mean, think back to your own self. Times when you not imaged God properly. I know I've had moments. All right, next one. Number 3. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Vain, that's one of those words we don't use anywhere but in church, right? The word vain means to make nothing. It means to mean nothing, which is why, like Yahweh, the Tetragrammaton became so holy. They didn't even pronounce it. They said Hashem because they were so afraid of using it in vain, using it incorrectly. We're not even going to say it. I think there's something more to this, though. I think Jesus would tell us there's more to it than just, anytime we say God, we don't say it in proper reverence. How many times have you heard someone just say God? But you're not saying it in proper reverence. That's making it mean nothing. And you can tell when people use it all the time because they throw it out there and they know, I didn't even realize I said that. Well, you've obviously made it mean nothing in your life. And we've seen that a lot. And so it's something that we have to, and it's everywhere around us. So we're easily to pick up that. James tells us, you can't control the tongue. So it's one of those things that we hear all the time. So it's easy for us to slip into those patterns of the world, especially with our tongue. And so if you're hearing it a lot, I know I discovered that the dangers of that when I was working in the school system. Oh, I was good while I was working in a Christian college. Then I moved to a secular school working with a bunch of mid-schoolers and heard it every day in day. And I didn't, it's not like I was in a didn't, say this is great, this is good. But it just, you hear it all the time, so you start thinking about it. You start thinking about it, guess what? It's going to start coming out. And so, we got to be careful when we use the name of the Lord our God in vain. But this is more, there's more to this. It's also about our actions. When we take on the name of Christ, our very actions have to reflect, that it has to mean something. We are his disciples. That has to mean something. We even call ourselves Christians, right? Little Christ. If we're making it mean nothing in our actions, that's breaking this commandment. David.
One more thing about misrepresenting God's work. I'm reading from Matthew 12, where it talks about the demon-possessed man. And the Pharisees attributed Jesus' healing of this man to Beelzebub, or Satan. That to me is the unforgivable sin. That is blasphemy to take what Jesus did and attribute it to Satan.
Okay, so, misrepresenting, giving Satan's credit where God needs the credit. And if God means nothing to us, then of course we're going to start looking for other places. And I think that's one of the problems that we've seen in our societies is God became so known place. Everyone was a Christian. Everyone went to church. Everyone, whether they were or not, you went to in our society. It became so normal that it became nothing. And then they started to look. Well, if this is nothing, then what about? We need meaning. And so they started looking for meaning other places, and they turned to science. Well, and for a long time, science was the answer. Everyone was turning to science and reason, and then it's become. Still a lot of people that worship science, but it's becoming, a lot of people are saying, it doesn't fill my answers, and so we're going like aliens. Aliens is the big thing right now, right? Go watch the History Channel. Aliens is the big thing. Because science isn't filling the gap. Well, we killed God. God is dead and we killed him. That's what Nietzsche said. Well, science ain't filling that gap. We got to find something else. Well, aliens. We got to have something filling that gap. Because we made him nothing in our lives, and that's what it means to take the layer. We can't, when they started making that rule, don't even say the name Hashem, of Yahweh. They weren't taking it far. They were taking it seriously, but they weren't taking it serious enough. They weren't taking that trip far enough. They were just saying, oh, literally, this is all we can't say is this one word. But it's much bigger than that.
I think for this one here is become irreverence to God and make him like flippant,
Irreverence to God, make it flippant, yes.
To take the holiness out of his name.
Absolutely. Take the sanctity, the holiness out of his name, absolutely. And who he is. And when we take on his name, we're his heirs, right? When we become Christians, he adopts us. I like to think about it this way. We're adopted. If you adopt, they take on your name, right? If I adopt another kid, they're going to become a Stotler. Well, if they screw around and mess around, that means that they've harmed the name of Stotler. If my kids screw around, they've harmed the name of Stotler. They're not bringing glory to the name of Stotler. And we take on his name. We take on Christ. And we can, we screw around, mess around, and not take the holiness out of it, then we're hurting his name. I mean, that's one of the reasons they say, what is it that they say? One of the greatest reasons people say they don't want to go to church is because of hypocrisy. Goes back to this commandment right here. We've made it nothing. Where are we at? 4. Remember the Shabbat and keep it holy. Keep it separate. Shabbat is a fun word in the Hebrew. It means 7. It means the Sabbath. It means rest as well. It is. It's a day that we remember now. They celebrated their Shabbat on Friday night, because if you go back to the Old Testament, it was evening and then it was morning. So they started in the evening time in Genesis. So they go back. They started in Genesis. So it's Friday night through Saturday evening, sundown to sundown. It only became, we started celebrating our Shabbat on Sundays for a number of reasons. Some of them good and some of them not so good. Acts chapter, is it 2? I'm sure David will go there real quick. I think it's chapter 2, but anyways, it might not be 2. Anyways, there's a chapter in Acts where it first records that they were meeting, the Christians were meeting on Sunday. They were Jewish people still, so they have their Shabbat on Saturday. And then after work on Sunday, they would get together and worship God on Sunday. And given the, they were so tired, kids were falling out of the windows. So that's one reason Christians started meeting on Sundays. Another reason they started meeting on Sundays was actually anti-Judaism, anti-Semitism. A hatred for the Jewish people emerged. The saying, "You killed Christ," and so they started hating the Jews. And so they didn't want to be like the Jews, so they started worshiping on Sunday. Then on top of that, you had Gentiles coming into the religion, and they worship the sun god on Sundays, the chief god on Sundays. That's where Sunday comes from. So you had these other days that you were worshiping already on Sundays. So they started saying, well, you can worship on Sunday. And so there are some good reasons for it, some not so good reasons for it. I don't know if we were really right to move it to Sunday, but it's what is. Truthfully, I think, life is life. As long as we're taking a day of rest, a day of Sabbath, it doesn't really matter what day it's at. It's our seventh. Our seventh day could be, Wednesday.
I think the scripture bears truth that when Jesus came back after the resurrection, he met with them on a Sunday.
Yes, he did meet with them on a Sunday, but that's because he met with them after the Sabbath. And that was another reason, thank you. That was another reason why they started worshiping on Sundays, because Jesus met with them on a Sunday. I still don't know if it's the right decision, but it's what is. That's why which ones were, there are still groups of Christians that do meet on Friday night and Saturday. Seventh-day Adventists, but there's others as well. Seventh-day Adventists are the most famous ones. They have some theology that I don't like, but I'm not sure I disagree with them on this point. They say, well, you're going to celebrate like Jesus did, the Jewish Sabbath. But, if we start saying what it means, if you start asking questions like, can I mow the lawn on Sunday? You've already missed the point. It's supposed to be holy. It's supposed to be reverent. If you start, wondering, can I wash my car? You're really you're focusing on the workspace aspect of it, and that's not what we're looking for. All right. Well, enough of that. We can. David, we'll find that chapter later. I know it's in the book of Acts. I just don't remember where it's at. Yeah. Always holy. I can see that point of view. I still think a day of rest is good for us. But I can see that point of view, that it's a moment by moment reliance on God. We don't need, everything's holy. We don't need a day. But I think it's good for us still. Number 5, honor your mother and father. Now, when we're young, we usually teach this to our kids, that means obey. Obey. That's not what it says here, is it? But usually that's what we tell our parents, our kids, right? Honor your mother and father. That means obey me. And you may not say it that way, but that's what we really mean, right? Unfortunately, that's led to a lot of misunderstanding of what it means to honor your mother and father. And a lot of things where, what if my mom isn't a Christian and says not to come to church? And of course, at some point you leave your mother and father and you become an adult. We in the United States are really bad at laying this out when this happens, but we're really bad about laying out when you become an adult. I mean, think about it. You can drive when you're 16. You can go to war at 18. You can drink when you're 21. You can get an abortion at 9. You can, without your parents' permission, you can, we're really bad about laying out when do you become an adult. So we're really bad about that. But at some point, the term youth, actually, adolescence, actually meant from 12 to 14 when it first came out. And now people refer to adolescence as like 12 to like 26 or something like that. And they keep pushing it further back just because you guys keep getting older and not dying. I tease. But no, we keep pushing it back as people keep, what do I want to do with my life? And we don't have anything that says, now you're an adult, this is how you're supposed to behave. This is what it means to be an adult. We don't have anything like that in the United States.
The thought sometimes is, as long as you're in school, you're still a youth.
As long
I know
as you're
that's
in
what
school,
our
you're still a
insurance
youth.
companies think.
Right. So if you go become, so as long as you're in school, you're a youth. So that means, okay, you got high school, and then college, and then master's, and PhD. So that means a person who's been in school and has a PhD, are they not adults yet? I heard one person told me that it was when you are married, have a house, and a kid. What if you never marry? What if you never buy a house? What if you never have children? You never become an adult? We're really, like I said, we're really bad at this. Really bad at this. And maybe that's one thing we might want to fix as a society. I don't know how we could do it. I haven't figured it out. I don't have any answers to this, but maybe it's something we should figure out as a society.
Could you say that honor, another word for honor would be respect?
Well, it's more than just respecting. You can respect someone, but it's the idea behind this is to bring glory to the name of your parents. Remember, honor shames society. So you want to bring honor to their name, which means doing good in the eyes of God, doing well in the eyes of society. Even if they are left, even if they're dead, you can bring glory to their name. You can honor their parents. It's an honor shame society. We have to remember that. It's not just about listening to them. It's about doing what is right. So I can bring, like my dad. His dad was a Christian at some times in his life and not at other times in his life. And I don't know if he was, if he truly believed even when he died. I don't know that. Like I said, I like to think he did. He professed Christ, but there are times in life when not so much. But my dad can bring honor to his parents' name by doing right in the eye of Christ. And the same thing, we honor our parents more than just listening to them. I mean, yes, you want to be respectful, you want to be, but more than just that. I mean, some parents are just, we can come up, there's narcissistic parents, there's parents that have abandoned them, there's just parents that are a-holes. There's parents that are just really bad parents. I knew a woman who became a Christian, and she couldn't go home to her parents because they were going to kill her because she was a Christian now. And she's like, how do I bring honor to them? If it means obey, how do I honor that? Well, it's not. It's about doing what is right and bring honor to them, being good and bringing glory to their name and being responsible and being respectful and being a good steward of what God has given us and the gifts. It's much bigger than just obey or listen. There's a much bigger thing going on here. And I think sometimes we forget that's what's great about these commandments and what's bad about these commandments is we can narrow them down to really bad things. But in truth, they're really about being this really big ideas, these really big concepts. That we can honor our parents even if we don't listen to our parents. Because they may not be telling us what's right.
And Jesus said fulfillment of all the laws is love, so we can love our parents regardless of...
Yeah, we can love our parents regardless of their actions. We can love them even if we know that they are bad parents. Even if we never talk to our parents, we can still love them. It's down the list a little bit. You're right. Let's love God first. Let's get it straight. Let's love God first. But this is actually the only commandment that actually has a promise with it too. I will give you a blessing if you honor your parents. But it's great because our honoring our parents has nothing to do with them. God will bless us even if we're bringing honor to really bad parents or absent parents. How many kids do we know that don't know their parents? And they can bring honor to their parents even if they've never met them. Just by being the person that God's called them to be. So really great idea here. Number 6, you shall not murder. Now, murder, some of your Bibles say kill. I don't like the term kill here because you turn around and God's saying destroy these people. And that's not really the idea that's going on here. Now, the Hebrew doesn't have a lot of words, so it uses the same kind of word. But what the idea here in this passage is don't commit, like what we call it manslaughter. We have, first-degree manslaughter. Of course, we have like fourth-degree manslaughter, fifth-degree manslaughter. We really divide these things up. There's a type of manslaughter. If you shoot a gun off and on the shooting range, it bounces off a pole and hits someone. That's the type of manslaughter. They would say this, and so they just say don't murder. The idea here is that any kind of murder is disrespecting God. We are His image. So if you murder someone, you are destroying the image of God. Yeah, that's right, intent. For us, it comes down to content, and for them, I think it comes down to command too, but intent. Why are you doing this is very important. There are times when they're commanded to, stone someone. That's in the Scriptures. Public execution is in the Scriptures. I think stoning is a much better method of execution than some of the ones we got now. It's maybe less humane, but but everyone has to take responsibility for it. Everyone has to throw a stone. If you don't think it's worthy of throwing the stone, then they shouldn't be stoned. Everyone has to take responsibility for it. So I think it's a much better method because we all have to be responsible for it. Right now, it's just we send them off and they rot in their dungeon and we argue about whether we're going to kill them. And they probably never will be.
Doesn't the Bible say that if we got hate in our hearts, it's just like murdering somebody?
It does. See, because Jesus takes sin like way more serious than we do. Jesus is like okay, like we hate sin, right? And we do. We hate sin, and like sex trafficking. We hate sex trafficking, and rightfully so. It's a horrible thing. We've labeled it something. We've labeled it sex trafficking because it's easier for us to ignore than to say, fiery. God's firing hell is on earth. Jesus takes it way more serious than that. He says, I want to get rid of all lust. And we're like, well, I don't want to get rid of all lust. I just want to get rid of this kind of lust. This kind of lust I don't agree with. And God's like, no, I want all lust. He takes sin way more serious than we do. We say, well, don't murder anyone. That means actually, don't kill anyone. And Jesus says, I don't want you to even hate them. If you hate them, you might as well kill them. Don't hate them. And that's something, that we have to deal with. Even with public executions or executions of any kind, as they're executing, is it out of hate or is that out of, punishment of a crime? 7, you shall not commit adultery. Now, in truth, this kind of goes to all sexual relationships because, at some point you might be married, and then if you had sex before your marriage, then you've already committed adultery. And that gets really confusing, but this is really talking about between, there are other passages that are actually better for fornication. This one is talking about between that marriage covenant. In that marriage covenant. There are other ones that are better about fornications and improper sex. This one is about in that marriage covenant, don't commit adultery. It destroys the family, which in the Bible, the family is the number one unit. Even before the church, it's the family. And this destroys the family, and God put it together. The Bible is very clear. Let no man tear asunder what God has done. And God says that anytime that our marriages, we don't like this, but all our marriages are supposed to be a reflection of God's marriage with the church. So if we commit adultery in our marriage, it's like saying God will commit adultery on us, or that we can commit adultery with God. And it's to destroy the image that God has laid down for us. It's a serious commandment. Don't commit adultery. And of course, Jesus goes on to talk about what's in your heart. Even if you've, that's why, yes, pornography is adultery. Yes, the highlight reel is a bad thing. Go watch a movie if you want to find out what that is. But, it is. It's, sexual relationships are supposed to be pure. They're supposed to be, and our sex is, a lot of times we don't like to talk about sex in church when it should be the first place we talk about it. Our sexual relationships is supposed to be God-based. We can't be shy of sex in church. Not having sex in church, but the topic of sex in church. That was another sin that they committed, and someone, get rid of it, and they rammed a rod through them. That was a good thing. That's false worship. But topic of sex, our sex, God created sex. He made us the way we are. And so we need to be discussing proper sex and holy sex. And so I think, we got to be taking, even our sexual relationships have to be about God. And that's why, homosexuality is by the world standard is not wrong because it's just about love. And if it was just about love, then they wouldn't be wrong. But it's not just about love. It's about our image of God and about sexual relationship with God, our relationship with God, and being it's supposed to be a holy act. It's not just about, it's about our relationship with God as well as, each other. And so, but yeah, if you just say love is love, well, that's not wrong. You've just taken God out of the equation. The Bible kind of talks about homosexuality as a return to the beasthood, being before God, we were man. But that's another subject altogether. But don't destroy the family. Number 8, you shall not steal. I'm actually amazed at how many societies, and I didn't know this growing up because our societies very much don't take each other's stuff. But I didn't know how many societies out there, they don't have the idea of personal possession. Taking someone else's stuff is just normal. If you don't have it nailed down, you're not watching it, you must not want it. And there are a lot of societies out there. And this idea is, hey, don't steal someone else's stuff. Don't steal but the idea is not just don't take someone else's possession. The idea is God has blessed so-and-so, Bernice, with this. Don't take what God has blessed her with. God will bless you with yours. You don't need to take her blessing. God will bless you. And so we're stealing each other's blessing, and that's really kind of the idea behind it. It's more than just personal possessions. It's about God. We have to put God back in these. It's about God. You shall not bear false witness. Well, we usually refer to this as like lying altogether, but that's not really what it's talking about here. There are other passages that are better for don't lie. This is about don't lie in court. The terminology there, the false witness, that's about lying in court. Don't bring false claims against your kin, your brother, your sister, your neighbor. Be honest and don't bring these false allegations, which we will see in the Bible as that people have done, and especially the wicked will do this, like Ahab. They'll bring false witnesses in court, breaking these commandments. And that's, so, yes, lying, not a good policy. The Bible does speak out against it, but that's not really what the purpose of this one is. And also, I think this has something to do with God in relationship to us as we will be judged. If we bear false witness to someone else in court, why should we be judged truthfully in his court? It's a reflection of God's court. Be truthful in God's court. And so there's very much this reflection of being, there's a lot there that I wish we had time to pack, but we only have 2 minutes. So, you shall not covet. Covet, that's another one of those church words, right? Covet, desire, it's not just I want I want a sea-doo. It's I want Mary's sea-doo. It's a destructive desire. I read one book that says if you can keep this one, you can keep the other 9. It was actually an interesting book. Coveting someone else's position, coveting someone else's things, coveting someone else's power, someone else's blessing, someone else's position with God. Coveting God's position in our lives. That's why magic in the Bible is wrong, not because magic isn't real. According to them, it was real. The Egyptians, the Canaanites, the Jewish people even had amulets and magic and stuff like that. It's a really interesting study. But it's bad because it was taking the power for myself. I can do it, not God. I can do it. It's that coveting of God's control.
Ain't this a slippery slope of desiring something that's not ours, and pretty soon we're going to go to the next step and we're going to get something that's ours?
It is a slippery slope. You can desire something from a store and work hard and get it. And let's face it, a lot of us do that. We work hard. I desire a new book. I read over 100 books a year, so I desire a new book. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to go buy me a book. That's okay. I desire someone else's book. Well, all of a sudden, I don't want to go buy my own copy. I want their book. I can't get it unless I take it. Very slippery slope. It kind of does, yeah. Don't steal. Don't take someone else's blessings. Yeah, absolutely. Naboth's vineyard. You can't take it unless it's. You can't get it unless you take it for yourself. Book of Elijah. The books on Elijah. Wonderful. Yes, she did. So she can have that vineyard. Book of Kings. Break the 10 Commandments. Yes. Yeah, we'll get to him a little later. Division of the 10 Commandments. I know it's over 7, but I want to finish the 10 Commandments real quick. The 10 Commandments are really dealing with the top 4, relationship with God. The rest of them deal with each other. Really, it's 4, 3, and 3. 4 with God, 3 with their relationship with each other, 3 with their communal relationship as a community. The word there, every time it says the word thou shalt not, in Hebrew, that's the term lo, L-O, lo. And it's the strongest negative. It's not a suggestion. This is the strongest negative. Don't do this. Yeah, all caps. Now, of course, Jesus will condense the 10 Commandments into 2. That sums up all of these. He's quoting from Deuteronomy 6 and Leviticus 19. Love God, love your neighbor. All right, we will leave off because we didn't even finish chapter 20. We are out of time. Well, we went through the 10 Commandments, though. That's heavy. We will be in chapter 20. We'll finish chapter 20 and go into the priestly code and on into Leviticus. I probably will be able to. No, we'll finish Exodus next time. I don't think we'll start Leviticus, but we will finish Exodus next time. I'm planning on watching a small video that's about 5 minutes on the tabernacle. That will sum up a lot of the passages. Because a lot of them are about describing the tabernacle and what's in the tabernacle and whatnot. So we will sum that all up in a short 5-minute video. All right. Anything else we need to say? I know it's 7:05. And I like to get you guys out on time, because that's the way I work. All right. Well, let's pray. Would anyone like to close us in prayer? Thank you.